Hey Internet, this is Gunter with MiniMishaps, and today we have the second half of round one of Gunter doesn't know what he's going to paint next. Alright, last time we went through the big tray of random, and we did tournament style moving forward of a bunch of them. And essentially, we used the rule of cool as the main focus, and that's going to continue to be for this second half of the round. Next time, on round two, it'll probably be the recognizability and usability in a RPG setting. So this time, rule of cool is first round, and next time it'll be the recognizability. So for those of you out there in internet land, you probably should tell us in the comments if you see ones last time or this time that you recognize or like or want to see move on. And we will jump right in. So we go from our big tray of random to our gray tray, and this is just the overview of the gray tray. Essentially, these are all store minis that don't have any paint on them, and so we'll do both the gray tray, and then we'll also do the 3D print, work in progress, halfway painted, shame part of the pile as well. So first up, we've got a wizard with a dragon laying on its shoulder versus an actual small dragon. And this is a tough matchup because obviously their rule of cool is going to be pretty comparable. Alright, so the mage on the left here is a bones miniature and will have to be primed. So we're going to say that both of them have an 8 rule of cool, but the mage loses one here for that extra step. So we're going to have that dragon move on. Next up, we've got Magic the Gathering miniature, and I love the clockwork staff there. And then we've got an armored goblin, blah, 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 blah. And then we've got an armored goblin on the right. And I think by virtue of how unique the sculpt is here on the Magic the Gathering one, with that kind of clockwork staff, we're going to give her a 6 rule of cool and the goblin a 3. So the Magic the Gathering miniature moves on. Alright, we've got another armored goblin on the left, and a guy with a chainsaw for a hand on the right, which is pretty cool. So we're going to give the goblin a 3, chainsaw guy a 5, and chainsaw guy moves forward. Alright, we've got a super cool sculpt of a dwarf, and this is actually the only one in all of my minis, I think, that is a miniature that I have painted first. I have already painted one of these. And then we have a halfling lady there holding a cup of something. I think she was supposed to be the caregiver of the little dragon in the other one. More detail on the base. Love the detail on the beard. And I love it could be a headband, it could be an eye patch, it could be a little helmet covering his head. So we're going to give the dwarf a 6 rule of cool, and we'll give the halfling dragon lady a 4. So we'll have the dwarf move on here. We have got a fighter and a bard. I love the crouching stance of the bard, and so we're going to give him a 5. And you see lots and lots of fighters, so we're going to go with 3 on the fighter. Bard moves on. Okay, now we have got kind of a ranger looking guy and a lizard folk. You guys know I love lizard folk. The lizard folk automatically gets a 5 rule of cool, and the ranger will get a 4. So we are going to go with the lizard folk on this one. Alright, we've got a druid that's casting, and another armored goblin. I think there was like 4 or 5 in that pack. 3 for the goblin, and I love the the mixed plastic medium when they have the casting elements. They're kind of hard to paint, but I think that increases the rule of cool. So we'll give the druid here a 5. And she moves on. Alright, we've got a Viking already primed. This is a metallic miniature. And then we've got another barbarian orc lady. So, but she doesn't need to prime. I think that kind of her miniature already is ready to go. So we've got 6 on the rule of cool for the axes and the cool hat. And then we've got probably a 6 on the rule of cool as well. Now, it looks like the orc has like bones almost in the base. So we're going to give the tiebreaker to the orc. She moves on because there's a little bit more attention set on the base. Alright, we have got a mage on the left, already primed, and our second Magic the Gathering miniature. So the mage is pretty nondescript, and also he's been painted twice and primed twice, so a lot of the details kind of been lost in that. He was the baseball player in our one challenge, and that's been primed over. So we're going to give him a 4 on the rule of cool, and I love these ropes or chains or whatever they are coming out of the Magic the Gathering person's hands. And that's going to put her at about a 7 on the rule of cool. So she gets to move forward. Alright, we've got a fighter and another armored goblin. Armored goblin's at 3. And we'll put the fighter at 4. Pretty nondescript base in both cases. So, fighter moves forward. We have got a werebear here with a giant axe. And I think I have this in a pre-painted miniature, the same sculpt. And then we've got another ranger with a crossbow, it looks like. We've got that druid's club sticking up into the picture there. So obviously I love doing animalian miniatures, so that's going to put the bear at about a 6 on the rule of cool. Ranger gets a 4. Bear moves on. Alright, so that's all of the gray tray, and now we are on to this pile of shame, which is 3D printed miniatures that don't have any paint, primed miniatures that I never got around to, miscellaneous things that don't fit anywhere, and the stuff that I started for a project in March probably that I lost 3 weeks and never got to finish those projects. So here we go. We've got training gear versus chair, and so I mean it's a nice chair sculpt, but the training gear is going to get a 4 on the rule of cool, and the chair is going to get about a 2 or 1. So training gear is moving forward. We've got a headless ghost. She's not all the way headless. She's holding her head there as if it were a improvised ranged weapon or something. And she's coming out of a tombstone. Versus these are, I think, the most long-standing unfinished painted miniatures of piles of supplies and fruit. So they have just been sitting around the longest, I think, of anything in my pile. But the headless ghost is going to be a 5 on the rule of cool, and the bags of fruit are going to be about a 1. So headless ghost moves forward. Alright, we've got a bunch here now that are from the March of Dwarves project that I never finished. Dwarves. The first one on the left is from the Reaper Online Expo, and so he's going to get a 5 on the rule of cool. Spiky Shield guy is half of another project that we did a long time ago, the two-tone miniature. And so he's going to be about a 5 as well. But I think it's less common for a dwarf to not have a beard and to be pictured with no metal weapons and to be holding a treasure box. So we're going to go with the one on the left moving forward. We'll give him, oh yeah, tiebreaker at 4 points. All right, we've got a gold armored casting paladin of some kind. And then we've got a teeny tiny dwarf carrying a little keg. And so paladin guy, because of the cool shape of the casting part, we're going to give him a 6 on the rule of cool. The teeny tiny dwarf is just so super cool. He's going to get a 7 and move on. All right, another one from our March of Dwarves. We've got a cleric with a mace and a sword. I like that it is dual wielding weapons that aren't the same. That's a pretty cool concept. And then we have a fairly nondescript, already primed gargoyle. And the hard part about gargoyles is there's not a lot of changes in surfaces for there to be distinct color changes. So that's going to probably reduce the rule of cool. We're going to give the dwarf a 5, and we're going to give the gargoyle a 4, and the dwarf's going to move on. All right, if you watched the first part of this series, you know that these ones on the left are extremely hard plastic. All of the neon there you see is plastic that has rejected the primer. It's not even paint. It's primer that's meant to stick to plastic doesn't stick to this kind of plastic. So I like the Greek theme and the Viking themes. That's the difference between the blue and green plastics. For all these miniatures, we're going to give them a 5 on the rule of cool, and then we're going to take off 3 for that hard to work with plastic. They end up with a 2. Then we've got another miniature that's hard because this one, like the other ones reject the primer, this one has been rejecting bases. You can see on the feet there, it's got some liquid plastic remnants of me trying to get it to stick to a base. It won't stick on a flying base. I just don't really know how to make this miniature, unless I put it on a mountain where the angle of its legs can be standing, making it level. Not really sure how to do that. So we're going to give this one a 6 on the rule of cool. We're going to take off 2 for the basing problem. It ends up with 4 and still moves forward. This one on the left is a chibi skeleton, like a mech computer chipboard that it's standing on. It's metal. So I don't really have a lot of practical uses for it in game. But it's still pretty cool. We're going to give it a 6 on the rule of cool. And then we have a almost detailless Ranger here, which is one of the very first things that I ever 3D printed on the old 3D printer. So he doesn't have a ton of detail, but he's primed and ready to go. So we're going to give him a 5 on the rule of cool. And so I guess our metal chibi miniature moves forward. All right, this guy on the left is the same batch of 3D printing that the last one was, but he has no detail, and he started with no detail, and now that he's primed, he just kind of looks like a Michelin man that got ripped there. So, and then on the right, we've got our dollar store kids throwing snowballs. Not a lot of practical use. So we're going to give our Michelin Golem 3 on the rule of cool, and we'll give our snowball throwing kids a 4 on the rule of cool, and they move forward. So we have got a Mimic, which the 3D printing here makes it actually look kind of weathered and rotten and zombified almost. And so we're going to give that a 8 on the rule of cool. And then on the right we have got a Bullywug. This is a handmade clay miniature that I made like 12 years ago before I had any tries at being an art creator. And this is a mold cast of that original clay miniature, and it's a mold that has done lots of mold casting. There's no detail left, and there's not really a lot to paint, so it's only going to get a 1 on the rule of cool, and the zombie mimic easily moves forward. Alright, another early 3D print. This is a mermaid. We're going to give the mermaid a 4 on the rule of cool. And then we've got Spock's hand doing the live long and prosper. Because of the scale, this would have to be like some statue or something outside of a temple. It is, the base is the right size, but it's just a big hand. So unless we want a giant sized thing running around in our D&D universe. But still, very cool. Print turned out pretty good. And we're going to give it a 7 on the rule of cool. So the hand moves forward. 3D printed Oogie Boogie. And we are going to give him a 6 on the rule of cool. And then we've got our Monster Bash. And this is a crowd favorite of you guys. You guys loved watching this video. But it's essentially like a manticore owl warrior. And he's going to get a 9 on the rule of cool because of you guys out there in internet land, and move forward. We've got a little 3D printed Viking versus a 3D printed Shrek. And Viking's going to get a 3 on the rule of cool. Shrek's going to get a 7 for nostalgia and rule of cool. Shrek moves forward. SpongeBob, and this is sort of like a cyberpunk dolphin, I think. SpongeBob, per my 4-year-old, is going to get a 8 on the rule of cool, and the cyberpunk dolphin is going to also get an 8 on the rule of cool. And I think the tiebreaker has to go into my 4-year-old, so SpongeBob moves forward. We've got another 4-year-old in mind miniature here with Minion Bob, and then we've got Loot Studios clock person with kind of a time-breaking sword of some kind. So Bob's going to get a 6 on the rule of cool. Time Guy is going to get also a 6 on the rule of cool, and we'll give the tiebreaker to the 4-year-old again. Alright, this is Cutter Fungathorn, and he is a Hero Forge miniature that we did on the 3D printer. And next to him is Slimer from the Ghostbusters, another one picked out by my 4-year-old. Cutter is one of the most fun and unique characters I've ever created in the Getherverse, and so he's going to get an 8 on the rule of cool. Slimer, not a hugely complex 3D print. And Ghostbusters is sort of a mixed, you like it or you don't. So we're going to give him a 5 on the rule of cool. Cutter moves on in this case. Alright, we have got an Angry Birds Star Wars character, 3D printed, and a fan warrior of some kind. Star Wars, Angry Birds, simple 3D print. We're going to give a 5 on the rule of cool. And this warrior also, well, not a simple print, but more complex than the 3D printer could really handle. Can't really tell what things are or what they're supposed to be. 2 on the rule of cool. We are going to go with the Angry Birds Star Wars print. Alright, we have got a 3D printed frog, pirate, bard, and that just like so many cool points for all those things together. The Animalien, it's a little bit bigger than the D&D scale I usually prefer, but he's got a rocking guitar or zither or some kind of mandolin there. Big smile full of teeth, pirate hat, and he's even raising a singular eyebrow to rock out on that guitar. We're going to give him a 9 on the rule of cool. And then we have Gary the Snail, and poor Gary, the computer and 3D printer shut off in the middle of his print, so the print failed. But we filled him up the rest of the way with hot glue and gave him some hot glue eyeballs. And so we're going to give him a 7 on the rule of cool. He's probably one of my favorite my son's favorite characters. So, but Frog Pirate Bard gets to move forward. Now we've got Patrick Star and a miniature frog pirate chef. Now this is in the same series. It printed a little smaller. It didn't take the detail at the smaller scale, so it's not going to get as high on the rule of cool. Patrick Star, cool character all around, and one of my son's favorites again, so we're going to give him a 7 on the rule of cool. And the detailless chef, you can tell that he's holding a turkey, but the rest of the frog details didn't really come out. We're going to give him a 3 on the rule of cool. Patrick moves on. Loot Studios, kind of unfair to pit these guys against each other because they're both from Loot Studios, and Loot Studios does amazing work. So we have the Mysterious Stranger on the left, and we have the kind of inflated merchant on the right. And Mysterious Stranger has a specific purpose. He's going to end up in Glasha's Tavern set, and just super cool. Now, kind of a knockoff of the Ranger from Lord of the Rings in the scene where they meet him. So, whereas the merchant here is like completely original, totally unique sculpt. I love the billowing clothes and all the gold pouches hanging off and the curly hat there. So we're going to give Mysterious Stranger here a 6 on the rule of cool, and we're going to give the merchant here a 7 on the rule of cool, and he moves forward. Alright, we've got a 6-legged armor-plated dog versus the first 3D printed busts that we're going to try and paint. Dog was part of the Reaper Online Expo box, I believe. And the bust is from Loot Studios. So, 6-legged armor-plated dog, that's pretty cool. We're going to give that an 8 on the rule of cool. And the bust is in 3 parts. It's a lot larger, but it didn't really take the detail. You can see it kind of looks like she's time shifting or phasing out of existence or being hit by waves of radiation or something, because the 3D printer just doesn't capture the detail. So we're gonna give her a 7 on the rule of cool because of the idea of it being a bust and the first one and doing a flute, but the dog here is still going to move on. So there you have it. This has been the second half of the rule of cool round of What is Gunter Gonna Paint? And here's that starting block of miniatures again. So tune in next time for this series. It'll be round 2, and it'll be all of the recognizability, which means you guys gotta let us know which ones you want, and we'll see you for the next video. Thanks, Internet.